What's up, first class viewers and fans? We are back once again to discuss all the action happening in the premier feeder league for the movie trivia Schmoedown. That's right, the first class league. Lots of crazy action this week as we have a competitor repeating in competition. We've got the house the Flouse built. That's right, Brad Gilmore still in negotiations with the Flirtin' Flouse. And two amazing matches. Was Kaylin Corrigan able to stalk her prey in true horror fashion in her matchup? Who's going to come out on top in all the victories? All that and more, as I'm joined by some wonderful co-hosts. As always, the beautiful Ryan Permison with that great interview. Check out our Spotlight series from last week with Late to the Party. We've got Keith Kilduff, busy on social media, pissing off everybody we talk to. And of course, we've got a wonderful guest for you this week. I'm so excited to see her, the maven of media. That's right, one of the original Twitter fans of the Schmoedown, and now working for the Schmoedown. She actually runs things over there on their social media. What a catch, and what a wonderful person to discuss the up-and-comers who will maybe one day be competing. All that and more coming your way this week on All right, that's right, fans. We are here. It is time for This Week in the FCL, and what a lineup we've got on the table today. Let's go around. Let's say hello to everybody. As always, our super producer extraordinaire, Chris Barnes. Hey, Chris, how's it going today?
Hello, everyone. How are you all doing?
Doing very, very well. Ryan Permison, the man with the plan, the man doing all those wonderful interviews. Ryan, having a good day today?
Absolutely good, sir. Thanks for having me. This is going to be one heck of an electrifying show, especially considering who our special guest is this week.
So excited about our special guest. And on that note, my next co-host, Keith Kilduff, please don't piss this one off. We're trying to get them back. Okay? Keith, how you doing today, brother?
I'm all good. Listen, I saved my harsh comments for the competitors, not the special guest that we have today. Don't worry.
That's right. And of course, our special guest, as mentioned, she's wonderful. You know her from Twitter. You know she's the one who keeps you entertained during the lulls in the free-for-all, if there are any of those. We are so thrilled to have her on the show. Of course, we are so lucky to have her here. Abby Freel, welcome to This Week in the FCL.
Thank you for having me. I'm super excited to be here to talk FCL. It was a really exciting week for the channel, so I'm excited.
Absolutely. It was a truly exciting week in the FCL this week. As mentioned, there's a little bit to talk about with the Flirtin' Flouse. I know some people here are more thrilled about that than others. We've got a couple of matches. And if you were out there hoping that there would be less pronouns, in this case, she less, I'm sorry, but we got Schmo this week. Schmo doing two matches. We've got a lot to talk about, and I can't wait to get into every single part of it and make more jokes that have my co-hosts put their faces in their hands as we continue on. Let's go ahead and right away, unless there's anything else you guys want to talk about, I think it's a good time to talk about some of the news that came out this week. What do you think?
I agree, Andrew. Let's fire into it.
All right. So much going on. Let's talk a little bit about some of the things that happened. First and foremost, we had our matches for this week. We will be getting into those in the match breakdowns. I'm sure Keith has a lot to say. Once again, Keith, I caution you, please be nice. At the same time, we've got some news that has come out, and I want to get some opinions from everybody here. Especially, I want to get some opinions from our wonderful guest, Abby. Abby, we learned in a post-match interview today on this show that Brad Gilmore was the one behind arranging number 41 in the free-for-all for the Flirtin' Flouse. How do you feel about this? Do you feel this is fair? Do you feel this is something that should be done? What do you think Brad's going to get out of this? Is it the right move for him to kowtow to all the demands of this big diva-type personality?
It was kind of a shock. I didn't expect Brad to turn heel like that. And because I know that some people might have been a little upset with his appearance in Free for All, or some people, it was mixed reaction overall. But I thought, if Brad thinks he's doing what's in the best interest of the FCL, then, you do you, I guess. But it is a little it's a little shocking overall to see Brad doing that.
Absolutely. A very, very surprising turn of events. I know you've got a lot to say about this one, don't you, Ryan?
Oh, Zaflurt and Flaus is here, and then he's not, and then he's pulling tours in Europe, and then he's not. It's all over the place. It's a complicated puzzle. But for him to be in the free-for-all, yeah, sure, he could try his luck and see what happens. I'm not sure. But, yeah, it's a wild and crazy world we live in. Apparently, Zaflurt and Flaus may be pulling more strings than what we're used to. I'm not sure.
He certainly seems to have his fingers in all of the pies. And Keith, let me ask you this. Do you think it's fair for this competitor to compete here in the FCL when he's already signed in the movie Trivia Schmoedown? Is this double dipping? Is there something going on here? What's the deal?
Well, I mean, it benefits both sides. It gets eyes on both sides of the river, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
Like more Flaus is good across the board in my eyes. So bring it on.
He is the biggest superstar in the world, isn't he?
Agreed. See, you guys across the pond in America, you don't understand how big this guy is in Europe. That's the problem. Me and Chris get this. We understand.
I mean, you speak, sir, without knowing entirely of what you speak, because I'm Canadian and we absolutely love all things European. We still eat all the same foods that you do. We still use the same words that you do. Hell, I still spell color with a U. If you think I haven't had a Flirt and Flash stream going at 3 a.m. in my house when a party's raging, you don't know what you're talking about. The Flirt and Flash is number one, and I can't wait to see more from him. But in other news, we have some exciting stuff that's coming up. Of course, there's a Flirt and Flash news is one thing, but we have an announcement on June 14th. I'm excited because this is right on the right date for me, right before my birthday. So I get to settle down on my birthday. Check this out. A mega stream. The first ever championship match in the FCL coming up on June 14th. Now, this one has me pumped like crazy. I want to start with you, Ryan. How are you feeling coming up on this, the very first championship match in the FCL? We're going to have our first champion to talk about.
I'm a little bit surprised. I didn't know it was going to happen this fast or this quick, this soon. But you know what? The more great stuff we can get from the FCL, the merrier. We're going to have a match. We're going to have a title match. Bring it on. I want to know who is the best in this realm of the MTS, with it being the FCL. So who is going to be the world champion? I can't wait to find out. It's going to be a great main event. It's going to be a great show, great pay-per-view, so to speak. So I say just bring it.
All right. Real SummerSlam vibes coming down for that one for me, and I'm sure Ryan knows exactly what I'm talking about. Abby, the first champion in the FCL. Let's get some opinions. Do you think there's a competitor who you feel might be in this matchup, who might be ready to challenge for that first ever title? And are you looking forward to this event?
I am very much looking forward to this event. They are going to be following in the footsteps of Mark Riley, the first ever Schmoedown champion. And so they're going to have a lot of ground to cover and a lot of just big shoes to step in terms of legacy. And going forward, I think that they're like, the FCL is so competitive. So who knows how long whoever this person is will keep that belt. I'm wondering who is going to be competing for it, just because will we have seen everyone by then? Maybe. I would love to see Maxwell Haddad get his first match in so he could compete for the belt. I'm really excited for his debut.
I have been seeing his stuff on Twitter, and like you, very excited to see what Maxwell does when he gets into the ring. Also, a name that I think may just have a real shot at potentially main eventing something like that. Maybe Robert Montano. No name, no quantity, and incredibly impressive performance in his first matchup. Keith, what do you have to say about this? Our upcoming championship match. Any thoughts, any concerns, anything that's really got you excited?
I think it's really good that we have a date set, so we can move towards this date and we can kind of like see how this is going to shape out in terms of, it almost mirrors kind of the start of season 3 in the Schmoedown itself, when you had like this little kind of mini gauntlet between Merle and Campy, and then you had Roca and Mant, and those two winners played for the right to play Riley. It almost feels like that sort of vibe is going to happen. We're going to get a little mini gauntlet. It feels like on kind of the promos that have been going around that Campbell and Harley is going to be on one side, but we don't know yet who's going to be on the other side. So that's just what I'm really looking forward to. Let's move towards who this kind of final four is going to be to get to that main event on the 14th.
Well, whoever it is, it sounds like at the very least they are going to have a hard-fought victory ahead of them. Whoever's going to be holding that title to start things off, they will have earned it. That much is for sure. But of course, we're all excited about the upcoming events. How about this other little bit of news that we got? There was a call out this week and a response from two alumni of This Week in the FCL itself, two of our favorite guests so far. That's right. We've got Knight and Furtado going at each other, and that match, it looks like, is pretty well locked in. Some big talkers. We got some knowledge. We know a little bit about them, so this is a match that we can definitely talk a whole lot about. How about starting with our super producer himself? Chris, what do you think about this one?
Obviously, this match isn't coming anytime soon, is it? Because I'm pretty sure Andrew's still under
on ice.
On ice, yeah.
That's one way.
As far as which way I think it will go, it's hard to tell. Obviously, they both lost, didn't they? I know which one I'd rather win. It's one that's probably been a bit less insulting to us, and that will be John Knight. Well, he did call us the Brady Bunch, but he just gave me an excuse to make that great video. So, yeah, so I don't know which way it's going to go. To be fair, Furtado seems to think he didn't have his best game, did he? And maybe if he improves a bit, I could see him taking it. But John Knight's no slouch, and he did pretty well in his own right. So I don't know which way to go. I'm glad it's happening though, because it's the first ever This Week in the FCL match. That's what I'm going to call it.
That's right. We do like both of these competitors. Obviously, they've done us a favor by being on here. And perhaps John Knight can kick in that Brady Bunch and marshal his forces against Furtado when that match comes around. I'm looking forward to it. And Keith, I would be remiss if I didn't ask you. You must have something to say about these two gentlemen with which we know you have had a little bit of history.
Listen, Andrew, you don't need to come to me. Let's just bypass my opinions on this one. I don't want to be at it anymore on Twitter this week. It's been enough. I've already been called out multiple times. So listen, I think I'll defer to Ryan if that's okay, Andrew.
Oh, well, that's sure. Absolutely. Ryan?
Oh, deferring. That's always a great strategy, no matter what game you're playing, kids. But anyway, yeah, between John and Andrew, it's one thing to cut a great promo. It's another to actually back it up in the ring, put those points on the board, and walk away with a victory. In this case, I think it's going to be John Knight walking away with the big W. Furtado, it's like, I'm tired of it, man. I'm tired of it. So just, John, put him out of his misery for us, please. Other than that, it should be a good match no matter what. It's going to be entertaining because that's what we want in these matches. It's entertainment. Are you not entertained? I mean, come on. But yeah, it ought to be fun, Andrew.
Yes, absolutely. It should be a good matchup. And speaking of entertainment, and speaking of people coming at other people on Twitter, let's go to our special guest. You have a unique viewpoint on this particular topic. Maybe you can give some advice to our very own Keith Kilduff at K Kilduff Media on Twitter. How does he not piss people off on Twitter? How does he do what Ryan just said and be entertaining? Are you not entertained like you are? I know when the free-for-all comes on, I'm refreshing my Twitter feed. I'm seeing everything you post, Abby, every year, and I'm always just laughing and smiling. You do a great job. So what can Keith do to improve his work on Twitter so that the next time a guest comes on here, they don't want to shiv us?
I feel like the phrase, if you have nothing nice to say, just don't say anything at all, applies. That would be the number one thing. You're really popping off on Twitter. So
it's funny, Abby. I get that a lot in person as well as on Twitter. So maybe I should take
yeah.
that. Thank you, Abby. Thank you.
And don't worry too much, Keith. We still love you just as long as nobody says they won't come on the show as long with you here, because then you're out and we all know it. But with all that,
got my finger on the button ready.
Amazing matches coming up. Knight versus Furtado should be a battle of the opening promos, in my opinion. These guys both do know how to talk. Can't wait to see what they're going to fire off at each other. And I can't wait to talk to both of them again. Perhaps we'll get a chance to have them back on here before that match, talk to them a little bit, maybe talk to you, Andrew Furtado. Please reach out to me. I'd love to talk to you, maybe do a spotlight series on the return, the glorious return to the FCL after your suspension, your unfair suspension. Mr. Furtado, please feel free to reach out to the Elk and we will get that arranged. But that's all the news that's fit to print this week in the FCL. That does not mean the show is over, because the show in the FCL is just beginning with our great matchups of the week. We had two amazing matchups, and as I already hinted at, we're going to see at least one competitor doing a little bit of a rerun in these matchups. It was an interesting week, to be sure. Let's go ahead to our match breakdowns with That's right. I may rag on him, but he is the expert on all our stat breakdowns. The wonderful Keith Kilduff.
FCL 5 is in the books, and this week saw 3 new competitors enter the ring, but more on that later on as we move on to the undercard of this week between Caelan Corrigan, the Scream Queen, against James Schmo. Anyway, interesting promos to begin with. Caelan showed kind of this kind of sweet country girl kind of vibe. Schmo had something going on, this kind of like sinister vibe he wanted to bring. Andrew, I suppose I just want to come to you first in terms of the promos. Is that a fair kind of feeling in terms of what you got, the vibe off the two guys?
Yeah, I'd say that's about right. I see these two doing their promos, and James Schmo coming in, being his sinister character. He's got a big burden on him for that first appearance. You really got to put yourself out there, get that personality across, and show you're no nonsense, what you're going to be representing moving forward. I think he did a pretty decent job of that. There are a few moments that maybe I would have cut back on or tweaked a little bit, but of course he's the one competing, not me. So overall, I think very good performance for him. And Caelan, I know I was a little mean to her last week. I called her out a bit and said maybe she hasn't always had the best performances in the Schmoedown. Nothing against her as a person. Obviously, I love her personality, and it showed through here. Nothing new, nothing super exciting came out during this promo, but we certainly saw a lot of who Caelan is, and that would continue on through the match. She's got a good attitude, and I think she did a pretty respectable job with this promo. No spoilers ahead, but that's about the same opinion I'm going to have of her performance through this whole match. I think she did real well here.
Abby, talk to me about like the development of a character at the start. Obviously, you know, you're part of the writing team on the Schmoedown, so you get to kind of see like this kind of development from such an early start. So like how did you see the Caelan and James?
I thought that they both brought their personalities out, whether or not like it's real or fake. I feel like just to be like the most important thing, whether or not you are a character when you're competing in the Schmoedown or FCL, is just having a personality that connects to the viewer and makes them want to root for you. And I think both of these players did that before the match with their promos.
That's a fair comment, Abby. Thanks very much for coming in there. So let's move into the match itself. So we go into round 1. It finishes 7-6 to Schmo. A couple of nice questions in here. Action adventure, Mel Gibson with the Patriot. There's a couple of ones we need to kind of really talk about, I think. Schmo blanks on who directed The Social Network, which is David Fincher. And then something that we haven't seen in a long time in round 1, where Caelan uses 2 JTEs on a fantasy sci-fi question of the 97 movie The Fifth Element. Chris, talk to me about what you thought in the moment as you were seeing repeat.
I honestly thought, obviously, she also used a repeat on the first question. So by this point, she'd used all her repeats. And I was just like, that could really come back to haunt her later on in this match, especially once you get towards the 3 and 5 point questions. And I was just surprised that she did. And like, to be honest, like I say every show, I'm rubbish at playing along and remembering anything of these films and stuff. So I would just honestly, personally, have just moved on myself. You know, if you don't know it, you don't know it. You know, and if it's like you got to think. And I think she did say afterwards, it was like there. She kind of on the tip of the tongue, but she just couldn't get it. But for me, you don't waste the repeats on round 1 point questions when you've got so many more rounds to come and then difficult 5 point questions at the end. It's
that they're fair points, Chris. I think in the moment we're all kind of like, what are you doing? But ultimately, I think there's another way of looking at it, which is the decisions you make in match are dictated, whether they're good or bad, on the outcome. So like if she takes the 2 JTEs to get the question, then you can kind of understand. Ryan, I want to come to you for a second, because I believe the last time we've seen in the Schmoedown someone hitting 2 JTEs on one question in round 1 was your hero, Mr. Kalinowski, in the 2018 Anarchy tournament against Who's the Boss on the Jennifer Grey Dirty Dancing question. What was going through your mind?
had to bring up my best friend / competitor. How dare you? But anyway,
I did.
aside from that, sorry, we talk more about that later. But aside from that, this really concerned me going into this because I'm thinking it's one thing to use one of your repeats during the course of round one. That's fine, no problem. But you got to save as much of those JT rules as you can for rounds 2 and 3. For her to use all 3 in the first round, I was really concerned. I'm thinking, oh, this is going to be a long day for Kaylin Corrigan. This is going to be a very long, bloody day. But thankfully, it kind of wasn't that, even though she used all 3 of her JTE rules. But yeah, round 3, I was getting concerned. I'm thinking to myself, all right, 3 JTs in the first round. It's not good. It's not good at all. But there's always, anything can happen in rounds 2 and 3 because truly round 1 is just the warm up. Rounds 2 and 3 can truly make you, but they can, I must break you. Like they can break you. So it was a very, little bit of a tense round 1, especially coming from somebody who was rooting for Kaylin because as we all know, Sinister James Schmo, excellent. He's got that Mr. Burns sinister look going on too. It's like, Schmo, that's a little too much for me, man. You're scaring people. But yeah, it was a heck of an interesting round 1. I'll give you that.
Abby, talk to me about the science of questions in terms of like where they're positioned in the different rounds. So obviously, kind of round 1, each are worth 1 point. You're talking kind of surface level almost, with a little bit of a kind of a trickery. Like when you're constructing questions in the different divisions, how do you go about knowing in your mind that's a 1 point question, that's a 2 point question, and so on and so forth?
Yeah, I mean, and question writing is hard because movies are so. Everyone has their own movie experience in terms of movie history and movie trivia. So it's hard because with the rules and everything, nothing is truly objective. But round 1 is supposed to be the most like objectively easy surface level thing. And so to see like, for example, like the social network question, you might be like, oh, that's really easy. But maybe like for Schmo, he just doesn't know David Fincher that well. Should he know him when he's competing in movie trivia? Probably. But but if that's his own thing, I think this round 1 was very strong in terms of just basic, just testing your knowledge, seeing where everyone kind of lands. Whereas like round 2, you might want to get a little bit deeper and it just keeps going from there in round 2 and 3.
Well, listen, let's get into round 2. So our wheel comes up. Again, I will point out the lovely little touch of the green and the red on the opponents and the spinner's choice. Mm-hmm. I do like it. Listen, I'm trying to be nice. I'm trying to change my persona out there. Please, this is the best I can do, okay? I like colors. So our wheel comes up. It's a really interesting kind of mix. We're getting Disney, we're getting horror, we're getting the time travel. With new slides come musicians in film, which comes into play. Scorsese, Kubrick, Jim Carrey. So there's a nice kind of mishmash of a little bit of everything. Schmo decides he wants to spin first. Lands on horror. I mentioned last week that the only way Kaylin was going to beat him was by taking horror. Schmo had an opportunity here to take horror himself, but as I pointed out, he's not strong in horror. He didn't want to touch this at all, decided to respin and got the musicians in film category. Goes 8 for 8. There's a Freel question of what Illumination film did he narrate, Jennifer Hudson's Oscar win, Dreamgirls, Bad Teacher, Justin Timberlake. And then I think the easiest question of the 4 to me was the Rihanna answer for the hacker in Ocean's 8. And I think because they mentioned who what Love the Way You Lie singer was XXXXX. So Abby, again, to that point, does that kind of go towards a first round question in your mind because they've got the context of the artist's song in there, or again, is that a subjective piece?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of just even FCL versus Schmoedown, like musicians in film is an FCL exclusive category. So, and it's so context driven in terms of like just naming Rihanna's songs like in there, like as far as I can remember, I don't think we've ever like name dropped a song that they sing where you can get it from that when this is like movie trivia, if that makes sense. Exactly. But and I did enjoy that category. It was funny that James missed the Social Network, but then like got the Illumination, like the Grinch one, because I have seen that movie and I knew it was Pharrell, but that is such a random question. I thought that was a very good question, but it was like, that was a little bit deeper. Yes, if that answers your question.
It does, definitely. Thanks, Abby. And I think for me in this round, the one that kind of was a kind of a tricky one in my head was the Pharrell one, because he did the song Happy for Minion or Despicable Me 2, which is also done by Illumination. So if you're thinking in that 15 seconds, potentially you could say Despicable Me 2. Andrew, what were your thoughts on musicians in film as a round?
I thought this was a very, very interesting category. I think this one must be tough for the question writers because not on the same level as you, Abby, but I've done a little tiny bit of question writing myself back in the movie trivia face-off. We had a lot of questions we had to put out, and certainly we had our rules about what was a 1 point, a 3 point, a 5 point. Musicians in film, wow, that's such a broad category. You have people like J-Lo who've transitioned into acting and have a whole filmography, but you also have one-off appearances. Phil Collins was in this Steven Spielberg movie, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I think this is a really broad category and well handled by Schmo when he gets here. Obviously, he goes perfect in the round. I mean, you can't say much about that. I'll also say, this is the point where if Kaylin doesn't end up getting a good category for herself, which we know she's going to do, those repeats might have come in handy. I know I didn't get a chance to say it at the beginning, and I'm trying to be nice, as I said, but this is the point where I'm saying if you have a question with 8 context clues in it about a movie and all you can come up with is a quote after the first repeat, save that next repeat. You might need it down the road. Doesn't end up mattering here. I think both competitors did very well in the second round. More impressive from Schmo only because we haven't seen him compete in a category before. We don't know if musicians might be something he's particularly good at. Maybe down the road I'll think differently about it. Kaylin, we knew what was going to happen, and I know I'm jumping ahead, but she's going to end up spinning horror, and wow, what a second round for both of them.
Definitely, Andrew. Listen, sure, if you're going ahead, let's catch up with you. And as we say, she spins, gets horror, goes 8 for 8 as well. 88 movie with a mother giving her daughter a possessed doll. Child's Play. What Alien franchise movie was directed by Fincher? Fincher coming back into it again. What's the only Halloween film minus Michael Myers? And then we obviously get a Shining question. So 8 for 8 for Kaylin. Were you expecting that, Chris, when she landed on it?
Well, the 8 for 8, I was, yeah. I was. Everyone knows that's the strength of hers. So I don't want to go in on James too much because we get to do that in round 2.
Don't worry, Chris. We'll get in on him. We'll get in on
the next match. But obviously, and you can't. I suppose you can't really go on too much. She got perfect rounds on both these round 2 questions, both these round 2s. But yeah, he span horror, and I suppose Keith, you did say it was obviously not a strength of it. But, that isn't exactly what he was letting us believe when he said, well, yeah, maybe I can beat her at her own game. I think, or something of that nature, he said. So if he did have that confidence, he should have taken horror, really, because if he had, I think this match may have finished differently than it actually did, because I'm not convinced in any of the other categories Kaylin may have gone perfect as she did. But yeah, that's all I've got to say about this round 2, really. I can't wait to get into round 2 on the next match.
Ryan, you were a big person who was supporting Kaylin going into this, so to see her go 8 for 8, that you must have been quite happy to see.
Yeah, absolutely. It seems like, things were a little bit dicey in round 1, and then in round 2, things turned in her favor. Spun the wheel, she gets horror, she takes it, gets all the questions right within the course of round 2. And I'm thinking, all right, this is now we're getting somewhere. All right. Your JT rules are still gone, which is kind of a bummer, but still got through round 2, so that's something to, pat yourself on the back for, I suppose. But yeah, it was a pretty good round 2, absolutely.
So we move into round 3. She's down by 1, so it's 15-14 to Schmo. Kaylin hits her 2 at the very last second on the buzzer. Biopics. Ice Cube's Son in 2015 movie, Straight Outta Compton. Tips back to Schmo for his 2. Doesn't know what the first ever Oscar animated movie winner was. He says Finding Nemo, it's Shrek. Goes back, he takes his 3. What's the proper name of Harrison Ford in Indiana Jones? Bounces back to Kaylin on the 3. Horror again coming back with a Candyman question. 11 of her points comes in horror, but that's just the way the numbers go in the third round. And then it comes down to Schmo's 5, which is in the category TC Legend, Tom Cruise himself, and who played Rowdy Burns in Days of Thunder. And he can't pull Michael Rooker, even with an additional 45 seconds. 19-18, Kaylin with the win. Andrew, talk to me.
Well, I mean, as I said, I think both competitors are actually competing pretty well here. Obviously, good scores put up coming into round number 3. And this is the point where you start to see that frustration happen for Schmo. You start to see him watching Kaylin's questions, and you can see it on his face. You can read it out loud. He's not liking these questions that are coming down. He starts off with the one that he misses. Maybe he doesn't think that's a fair 2-pointer question. Personally, I might have even flipped his 2 and his 3. I think that Henry Jones Jr., again, it's all context, maybe a little easier for me. But you can tell through this whole round, and good for Kaylin, staying calm, doesn't need the repeat. She ends up taking down the victory. I'm very much happy that she got the win. Congratulations to her on that. But it's Schmo who's really doing all the work in this round, because he's sitting back and you can see him basically turning red and ready to explode, which, as we know in the post-match interview, he's going to.
That he is. Abby, talk to me about the 5-pointer. So we're looking for who played a character in a movie. Do you, how far back and how deep in your eyes do you go on the cast list when you ask those questions as a 5-pointer?
Well, 5-pointer, since that question was very basically just like, who is this person? And it's not Tom Cruise. I think that it was a valid 5-pointer. I think it worked. I mean, he didn't get it, so it was hard. But in terms of like comparing them to other ones, maybe if you see something, if it's someone who's like earlier on the cast list, like you would take out the name and give them a lot less context for the answer. So this was one that is just, do you know it? Yes or no? And Schmo did not know it. So
he certainly didn't. Ryan, I want to come to you for a second because there was a point that came to mind as I was watching. And as a competitor moving into these leagues, I feel like there needs to be a certain level of general knowledge across all categories. And I'm just wondering, Schmo missing the 2-pointer on the Oscars question, how important going into a league like this should you cover your bases and know what the first winners of every single Oscar is? Because I feel like that's a question that could be asked very easily across all awards in the Oscars.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, as someone who hasn't seen every single Oscar ceremony, because how many of those things are there? Like 40 billion? That's a lot of awards, people. It's a lot to keep track of. I can't do it. I can try, but I can't promise I can remember them all. But with that question, yeah, no, that's a good question, actually. When the question was being worded, I almost misunderstood it. I thought they were saying, what was the first film nominated, like first animated film to be nominated for Best Picture or win or something like that. So I was thinking of something else. But when Shrek came up, I'm like, yeah, it was Shrek. Yeah, I got this now. But yeah, as far as remembering that for future reference and down the line, yeah, try to remember certain things about certain awards when it comes to the Oscars, because the Oscars is a very brutally tough category that covers 7, 8, 9, 10 decades. It's a plethora, okay? It's a plethora. It's a lot. So do your studying. Remember the Shreks. Remember the Beauty and the Beasts that got nominated for Best Picture at the Oscar. First animated film to be nominated, just saying, among other things. So I can understand how that might be a bit of a challenge for some competitors. So yeah, Oscars, those questions are elite, but you gotta do a bit of studying. Just saying, make a binder.
Just a little bit, yeah. So, as we said, 1918, Kaylin, post-match has come. Kaylin's quite happy with herself. I believe, that was her singles debut. Apologies, forget what I was about to say there. But she's happy out, comes to Schmo. Steph is talking to him, trying to kind of take him off the ledge almost. And then he decides that he's going to go full heel and come after the 4 of us on screen. Because we felt that he shouldn't be in singles. Schmo, I'm only calling out what I see. There's game tape on you. The game tape is in certain divisions. You ended up being in a different division. Of course, I'm going to call that out. Chris, I could say 101 things, but I need a minute or two to gather my thoughts. If you could just take the lead and just talk to me about what was going through your mind when you were listening to this idiot talk.
Oh my God.
Okay, right. Honestly, the first thing went through my mind was, this is all Keith's fault. Keith, it's all Keith's fault. Keith's upset somebody else. I'd even noticed you'd done it this time. Normally I'm not here and I can see you upset Andrew because he was actually here on with us and stuff. And I'm thinking, oh my, how has this happened? And I was thinking back, what happened in the show last week? What has Keith said that's really upset him this much. And then I thought, well, maybe it was Ryan. Ryan can sometimes get a bit animated. Maybe Ryan said something. And I was thinking about, well, was it on our first show when we were breaking down the new rosters? Was it then? Did one of someone say something? I know it wouldn't be Andrew because Andrew's just nice to everybody because that's
Canadian.
just what he's like. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Canadian.
Yes, it's not as all being sycophantic. It's definitely Canadian.
Yeah. So Andrew, what did you think when you first heard it?
Well, obviously, I love a good heel. If you've taken the time, folks, and I'm not saying you have to, you've seen my work when I was doing this, doing a little bit of the movie trivia, taking Robert Parker to a 5-point question in Harry Potter trivia. That's right. Go ahead and look it up. I was definitely not the nicest person out there, and Schmo is definitely not the nicest person in the FCL. He's talking big. He's saying a lot of words. But in the end, he said the 4 words that I want to hear the most of all. That's right, live on the air. We're not going to hear it again until, oh, wait, that's right, just a little bit later in the show. This week in the FCL. That's right. This week in the FCL. These are the words on the lips of every competitor in the FCL. You know you love us. You know we've got the hottest takes. And we've even got something in mind to maybe corral Keith one of these days. I'm not sure if it will work or if you're allowed to use that much electricity on a human being. But we'll find out eventually. Either way, folks, keep having fun out there. Come on back in. And James Schmo, maybe you're running a little bit hot, but I will have more to say to you a little bit later for one very obvious reason.
Okay, I think I have settled down, and I want to take 2 minutes to say one thing straight down the camera to Mr. Schemo.
Before you start, Keith, I've got my finger on the remove button, okay? Just in case you go a little bit too far with it.
Chris, I've trusted you since day one. Please trust me with this now.
Okay, fair enough.
It's about to pop off, I think.
It's about to go. Perhaps I should give.
Yeah.
Mr. Schemo, this is how this is going to work. You're there, you're talking your big talk, you're forming this little sinister society, trying to be a big, hard man in a group setting, looking to grow in numbers. But you know what I really think? This is all just troll behavior, hiding behind your screen. Come on this show. Let's see what you're like vulnerable and let's flesh this out properly. Don't cower now you've been confronted and called out over your actions and your comments. Never once have you shown any gratitude for all the prep work that this show brings. Never once have we misquoted anything on this show about you or any competitor. And for you to speak to us like this is quite frankly a show of no class. But hey, if you think that I'm impressed by you needing 2 bites of the cherry in one night to get a W, you are mistaken. But hey, guess what? I'll see you real soon, Schemo. I'll see you soon.
And just real quick, let me jump in here. On a similar note, Mr. Schemo, I invite you as well to come on this show and please send me a Twitter DM about what kind of like gift basket you want. We'll put some soaps in there, some bath bombs, maybe some chocolates. Because I want you to have a good time coming on this show. I want all our guests to have fun. Abby, have you ever heard the host of a show talk like this about a potential future guest? I can't believe it.
The last time I heard someone talk like this was on Call to Action when they were a heel podcast, but that's not really a thing anymore. So good job, I guess.
And I mean, Keith, I'm supposed to be the jerk around here.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're not a heel podcast, Abby. We've just got one rogue member.
Just one enemy.
Yeah, just one rogue member who likes to,
okay,
as we say, upset everybody.
Well, you know what? I like the variety. If you guys all had the same opinion, it wouldn't be fun. So,
exactly.
Thank you, Abby. I'll take that as a roundabout compliment in some manner. Listen, let's get into match 2, which happens to include my new best friend, Mr. James Schemo, who comes back. He pulls a little trick on poor David, and next he rocks in as Sonny Olsen's competitor. A guy, I know, Chris, you were quite high on him as he came into the league. So let's move into round 1 again after all the shenanigans. So it's tied up at 5-5 after the first few questions. A couple of nice ones in here. Who directed Django Unchained? Who played Ben Stone in Knocked Up? The 2005 Josh Whedon fantasy sci-fi movie. And then we kind of get into where things kind of slide a bit. Sonny goes 0 for 3 in his final. Schemo takes the bonus point question, which is the marriage story with Adam Driver and ScarJo, and opens up a 9-5 lead after round 1. Ryan, if you're down by 4, Is there a way back, or do you think that you're still within range?
I mean, I would say it's a tough mountain to climb, but it's not impossible. You can still reach the top of Mount Everest and be a survivor. So, yeah, it's a bit tough there, but I still think Sonny could pull it out during the courses of rounds 2 and 3. We'll see what happens.
Andrew, was there any questions that kind of popped out in your mind as you were listening and watching?
I mean, I don't know if anything really, really shocked me. I thought pretty good spread of first round questions, and boy, what a great start to the round for Schmo. He had to be feeling real good coming off of this. While Sonny Olsen, the back half really kicked him in the butt, and man kept a great attitude. You got to love somebody who stays happy, but he does end up in that hole. Schmo now has him over a barrel with the 4 points, and I got to tell you, unlike what was just said about it, I don't think there's really, if you're being honest and fair and a competitor's that far ahead of you after for the first round, there's no way you could possibly come back unless your opponent were to do something stupid like, I don't know, give you your best category in round 2, but that'll never happen.
Never. Let's move into round 2. Let's move into round 2. And Abby, I'd really like to get your views on wheel construction from a production point of view. So again, kind of as we brings it up again, so just 12 slices on a wheel, and opponents would usually they'll allow 1 or 2 slices depending on where we're at, like that they'd like to put on the wheel. But in terms of making up the rest of the categories, how do you guys go about it? If you can pull the veil behind the curtain and let us in.
Yeah, so on the Schmoedown, like you said, we usually take 2, like a player through their manager. The manager will give us 2 slices that they want on the wheel. And then depending on those 4 categories, we balance them out. So if they ask for something where it's like a genre and an actor, the other player asks for 2 actor categories, we'll try to balance it out between the decades, the genres, the subgenres, the actor and actress specific ones, so that it kind of balances out, because you don't want it to just all be like horror, comedy, animation, blah, 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 like, or all actors. So it just kind of depends on what those 2 competitors suggest for themselves on the wheel.
So pretty much what they pick dictates what you guys then decide. So you don't go into a match saying we're going to put these 6 things on. It's competitor first, and then we build out from there.
Just because it can be so unbalanced depending on what their strengths are. So you have to then balance it back out.
Okay, so we move on to round 2. We're getting Eddie Murphy, we're getting movie release dates, coming of age, Star Wars, sports, Adam Sandler. So again, as you say, Abby, a nice little kind of, there's obviously strengths and weaknesses, and then they're kind of met in the middle, which it's a nice kind of way that the wheel is constructed. She must, again, because he's up by 4, decides, listen, I'm in the driver's seat, so I'll push this home. Spins, gets coming of age, and goes 8 for 8 again for the second time in the night. We get a question on The Graduate with Dustin Hoffman. We get what Hulk actor was in 13 Coming on 30. Ezra Miller is quoted for the Perks of Being a Wallflower, and then the 1995 Cher Horowitz Clueless is the answer for the last one. So 8 for 8. Chris, was there any surprises in this category for you?
No, not really, to be honest. I'm obviously, like everyone else, I've got a bit to say about the back half of this round. But no, I think, you can't take anything away from James. He's went perfect. Like I've always said, I wouldn't have gone perfect, but he did. And no real shocks for me in there, I don't think.
Ryan, talk to me about being in the box seat, being ahead by 12, and your opponent spins and it gets opponent's choice. Surely to God, you're thinking, here's knockout time.
Yeah, 100%. You're thinking, okay, well, he's gonna hit me with a category that I'm probably not strong in. So this is pretty much the be all end all, as it were. But as we find out moments later, no, it's not. Did he not pay attention to what was on Sonny Olsen's wall? No,
I mean,
he didn't pay attention. You didn't see the giant thing in the background. Okay, fine. So he goes ahead and he gives him Star Wars. What? Okay. You didn't see the poster. That's a great indicator.
Crazy. Like, I mean, we've spoken, and obviously Schmo knows because he's watching us, that Sonny and Kat are strong in Star Wars. Gives it to him anyway, and Sonny, rightly so, goes 8 for 8 as well. We get how many films has George Lucas directed, who played Solo in Solo. Phantom Menace the year it came out, and then who directed Clone Wars 8 for 8. Andrew, I presume you were expecting that once it was given, but I feel like you've got something to say.
I mean, what can you say about James Schmoedown? I'm taking nothing away from the return. To do 2 matches in one night, incredibly impressive. The amount of points he's putting up, the way he's performing in this match, for the most part, absolutely stunningly done. I cannot say enough about how good this match is for Schmoedown, except for this one massive, glaring, incredible flaw in your game. I'm sorry, but if you are looking at your opponent and he's got Luke Skywalker and Han Solo on a poster in his background and you say, I don't know, let's just give him Star Wars, then you are giving him a new hope in the match, quite literally. Please don't do this, competitors. I love Sonny Olsen being so nice in this match, but I'm also going to say, Sonny, you need some killer instinct to win these matches. You need to put yourself out there and know that that win is the most important thing. And James Schmoedown, you lost sight of that. When you gave your opponent a category, you knew he was going to run the table in. Don't tell me maybe he misses one, maybe I get a steal, I'm this far ahead. 4 points is not enough in Schmoedown to be that comfortable. Never, ever, ever, especially if you're a heel, never give your opponent their actual choice of category. Why would you do it? I'm amazed. I'm flabbergasted. That being said, Schmo, please come on this week in the FCL sometime soon. Love you.
Abby,
that's a turn of events. Sorry, didn't mean to cut you off, Keith. I was just going to say one thing, and we brought this up earlier. So, James Schmoedown, you give your opponent Star Wars. He's got a Star Wars poster in the background. So, clearly, you chose poorly. Just saying.
Agreed.
I like what you did there, Ryan. But Abby, talk to me about these IG categories in general play. So obviously, it's been noted that the difficulty level is turned down. But how much do you guys look to turn it down? 20%, 30%? Like, what's your kind of basis?
Yeah, I mean, for a category like Star Wars in a singles match, you definitely want the basic fan to be able to answer them. I don't know what the percentage number would be, but you want someone like a Paul Preston to be able to answer them, as opposed to I'm just thinking of yesterday's match with Paul and Ben, where Ben excels in Jurassic Park because he studies that, but Paul also could have helped out if Ben wasn't as strong. And so when you have someone like Sonny Olsen, who I believe he mentioned in his pregame interview that he does commentary, he mentioned his channel, where I feel like he talked about Star Wars beforehand. And it's like, are you not on that Skype call watching that? He's going to get, especially at the start of the Star Wars category in FCL, it's going to be very, very not easy, but just very basic in terms of what they're asking. And before it gets too deep, like it is now in Star Wars. But Sonny's going to answer all of them. So if he and you guys were right, if he has a little something in his room, maybe he likes it a little bit. So, it was very interesting.
Interesting is definitely the word. So we move into round 3. Shimo's up 17-13. So it's all on Sonny to kind of push it back on him. Misses his 2-pointer with the Charlize Theron bombshell question. Gets his Oscars question for his 3, which was what character did Hopkins win his first Oscar for? Very, topical person to bring up the week that's in it. And then gets his 5-pointer, which is in the category of Harrison Ford, aka Star Wars. How many times did he play Han Solo? 5. And this, I believe, Abby, you can correct me if you know off the top of your head, but I think that in last year's spectacular match between Ace and Damon, they both missed this. This was asked and they both missed it. So it was interesting to see it come full circle down in the developmental league in the FCL. So pushes back to Schmo, gets his 2-pointer in the category directors. What 2 DC movies has Patty Jenkins directed? And then for the 3-pointer, wraps it up with fantasy sci-fi. What 2017 movie did Matthew Vaughn direct? Gets the W, 22-21, calls out Jared Habon in his post-match interview. Andrew, talk to me.
Hey, I love to talk. Let's talk about this round number 3, the decisions that were made, what was and wasn't answered correctly. We've got these competitors coming in a 4-point gap. We've discussed the final round gap before. We know that 5 is that magic number. That's where you want to be. Ideally, you can get above this, but 5 is where you want to be to force them all the way to that last question, no matter what happens. Instead, he's 4 points back. So we get our questions asked up. Toss up in the air. Can you answer them? He gets this Star Wars question, although personally, I think it should be 6. Make the Star Wars Christmas special canon again, please. Holiday special, I'm sorry. But we've got so many things going on. He's got this question. He does go for it. He does get it. And like you said, it's great when you study the tapes. You've seen the previous matches. Maybe you know this question was asked before. You know what the answer is. That is well done. Schmo ultimately takes the victory. But again, I don't like that he put himself in the position he did. He didn't need to be this close. He could have gone to round 2 and given his opponent his choice. And then if he steals one question, that's a 4-point swing or a 2-point swing, no matter whether he goes to multiple choice or not. And instead of being 4 points ahead, you're 6 points ahead. And what did I say before? That's that magic. Getting over that 5-point gap means it's much more difficult for your opponent to come back, and it makes it much easier for you to win with just those early questions. Schmo gets the win. I love his performance. You can't say anything bad about a perfect game, which is what he ended up having. But I hate his choice in the second round, and I will not let it go. You cannot make these mistakes. Also, for all you people out there who don't mind pissing off your opponents, please, someone says Wonder Woman 1984, that's the time in round number 3 when you know the match is basically over, throw out your remaining challenge. The movie is Wonder Woman '84. Will they give you the challenge? Maybe not, but they might, and that point could mean the difference between winning and losing. So, little word of advice from me. Be a jerk when you're in this match. You don't want to have a good time with your opponent. You want to crush them under your heel and move on to the next one. That's what you need to do. That's the attitude you need to have. And I think Schmo just lost it for a brief moment in round number 2. Could have cost him, ends up not doing so. So tut-tut on the decision, but great match played all the way around by him. And not a bad match by Olsen. Again, would have loved to see some more Killer Instinct. Shame about the back half of round 2, but good match from both, and very impressive for Schmo to bounce back from the first match that he loses. He doesn't get into his own head. He doesn't break down. Instead, he comes back and puts up an incredibly strong performance. Got to give him the points for that. So overall, I'd say win for Schmo, but next time, couple tweaks.
Agreed, Andrew. And I think, listen, you're dead right. It's 100% accuracy. It's 100% points earned. But if Sonny had gotten one of the 3 that he missed in the first round, Schmo has to hit his 5 to win. And he's already missed a 5 in this first game. So there's potentially that demon in the back of his head if it had gotten to that. But he played beautifully, gets the W. He's 1-1. And now I know he, as I said, he called out another guy that, Ryan, you're fairly hot on, Mr. Jared Habon. Would you like to see those 2 in the ring together?
Sure. Why not? I'm getting kind of tired of hearing that name, Jared Habon, tossed around the interwebs, and especially in the FCL. It's like, geez, you're on The Bachelor or Bachelorette for 2 minutes, and everyone treats you like you're the best thing on reality TV. No. That show shouldn't even be on the air right now. It should have been dead 15 years ago. Ryan and Tristan, that's it. Other than that, get rid of the show. But with Jared Habon and this other rivalry between the two, sure, put him in the ring. Let someone else put Jared Habon in his place, because I don't like Jared Habon. I'm getting tired of hearing this name, fellas. I'm getting tired of it. So yeah, go ahead, put him in the ring. I'll be there, front row center. Thanks.
Everyone does seem to be challenging Jared, don't they? Someone else challenged Jared last week, I think.
Everybody is.
Everyone just wants to have a go, which I think is.
They want to rip that reality TV star persona to shreds, and I love it. Tear it apart, rip it to shit. Don't even talk about flowers or roses or anything. Just tear them apart. Just do it for me, all right? But anyway, back to you at the desk. I'm finished.
Abby, do you want to defend The Bachelor there? I know you're a bit of a fan of that show, aren't you?
Yeah. I did meet Jared virtually when I hosted the Bachelor Schmoedown match. Very nice. But he is someone that I honestly agree that people should challenge, because although he won, I feel like he could be beaten very easily if the spins and the correct answers go the other person's way. So I do see why everyone's challenging him, because I think his debut in the FCL was one of his better days. But if you get him on a bad day, you can definitely beat him.
That's fair enough. So I think, listen, we've covered off everything this week in terms of the matches that have been played. So let's turn our attentions to next week in the FCL.
Coming up next week in the FCL, we have two incredible matches that are going to be celebrating one of the most important days, if not celebrations, of the entire calendar year, ladies and gentlemen. And that is May the 4th be with you. You know what I'm talking about. It's Star Wars Day, and we got a doubleheader, two excellent matches that are going to take us into a galaxy far, far away. We have, kicking things off in the singles division, we have Reifenberg versus Gertler, and then for the main event, you got Ross versus Reed. Both of these are going to be Star Wars division matchups, which means not only are all the movies up for grabs, but you're going to be potentially getting questions about The Mandalorian, Star Wars Rebels, Star Wars The Clone Wars, maybe the holiday special, but I highly doubt it. But anything else that is Star Wars or Star Wars Universe, Star Wars Galaxy is going to be thrown in there for good measure. It is going to be up for grabs. Cannot wait to see this. I've been a Star Wars fan for a number of years, especially an even bigger Star Wars fan when a certain indie film called Force Awakens came out and knocked me on my keister, and I love it to pieces. I don't care what the haters say. Love you, Force Awakens and Rogue One. But aside from that, Andrew, what do you think about these two matchups for Star Wars Day 2021?
Well, to quote a great man, Star Wars, nothing but Star Wars. That's right. We've got a galaxy far, far away and some competitors who may also be coming in remotely. That's the way it's done nowadays, Zoom, Skype, what have you. Pandemics, folks. What can I say? No, we got some great competitors coming up. I'm a huge fan of Star Wars. Not the nitty gritty, not every little detail, and I've read all the novels. But I mean, I grew up with the gold box. I watched Darth Vader and Luke Skywalker go through their little journey. And like you, Ryan, I loved Force Awakens. Hell, big fan of almost everything in the Star Wars galaxy. So I think this should be a whole lot of fun. And we've got 4 competitors coming in. So again, that excitement, that newness that the FCL has brought to us all these weeks so far that we've always enjoyed, getting to know new personalities and see what they have to offer. And if I can do my patented elk move, get my chapstick on and get ready to pucker up right now, I will say I'm particularly excited about one of these competitors. That's right, the man himself, Ross. He's going to be on our show this week in the FCL next week, if I'm not mistaken. Isn't that right, Chris?
That is absolutely correct. Yes, he is. And I am. That's the one I'm very looking forward to seeing as well, because I made it quite clear that he was my one to watch for the FCL, and I was so surprised that he wasn't picked up in the draft. But I don't even really know him, but I watched him on a certain point of view, and just his interview and how he kind of, hopefully we'll get into it a bit next week, but how he's got his techniques for remembering stuff and all these different things. I thought, I just think he's going to be good, and he knows what he's doing. So, yeah, I'm very excited to see Ross. And Matthew Reed, Abby, is he the Matthew Reed who did music for Collider Live and stuff?
That I do not know.
Oh.
He might be.
Yeah. I thought for Swag as well. Keith said maybe. Did he do a song for Swag?
yeah. David B did not do Swag. I know that. So
yeah, so I think that's him. Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah.
Keith. That's him. Yeah.
Next week anyway.
Well, yeah. So I don't know how he is with Star Wars and stuff. So obviously my favourite for that will be Ross, because he was my favourite coming into the FCL anyway. I was being kind of, as a big Star Wars fan, and the Star Wars division is probably my favourite division in the Schmoedown itself. So I've been very excited for this moment, for all this to happen. But yeah.
Really, with all that Star Wars stuff in your background, gee, I couldn't tell. But Keith, I got to ask you, brother, what are you most excited for between these two matches?
I'll be perfectly honest with you, and I think I'm going to make even less friends after I say this. I don't like Star Wars, but I can appreciate the Star Wars division, if that's okay. I think JC, because he works with Fat Man Beyond, he's got the Twitch channel Scum and Villainy, he's going to come in with a nice level of knowledge. I think all 4 are going to have some level of knowledge. You're not going to go into such a hyper specific division without knowing things. So I think we can box that off. There's not, that's not a big scoop I can bring to you. The Gertler one is an interesting one because I'm getting Adam Witt style vibes off him, in the sense that this is a guy who was in teams and now he's moving straight into Star Wars. You would think you would go teams to singles normally and then maybe go into IG or Star Wars, but he's jumping from teams straight in. I'm curious to see how that goes. Ross has Chris has said, has got these interesting memory techniques. I believe he's calling it Schmoedown. So let's see if this works out next week. Himself and his brother do a Order 66 podcast, so he's going to be kept up with knowledge. And if Matthew Reed is the guy that we think he is, great. If not, then Chris, you can clip this out and call it a bloopers piece.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Oh,
absolutely.
that will be something for the books. But Abby, I gotta ask: have you learned the ways of the Force, or have you not? And if you have, Are you looking forward to these two matchups? And if so, just out of curiosity's sake, if you want to answer it, you can. If you don't want to, that's fine too. Favorite Star Wars movie that's not The Empire Strikes Back?
Ooh, I am a big Rogue One fan. First of all, that's I would agree with you, Ryan, that The Force Awakens is the best one. That was my favorite one until other movies have come out and canceled it. But that's a different podcast. I do I do really love the Star Wars division. I think it's the best example of how mentally strong these movie trivia players are. And I am expecting the same from the FCL. So I'm excited for both of these matches. I'm excited for Gertler to make a comeback. We haven't seen him in a minute. So I'm excited just overall, and it'll be a great way to celebrate May the 4th.
And real quick, I'm just going to jump in because nobody has mentioned it yet. It is worth noting something exciting about these FCL matches. Have not seen it yet in the movie trivia Schmoedown. Do not forget Star Wars The Mandalorian, Star Wars Rebel, Star Wars Clone Wars, the TV show, all fair game in the Star Wars matches in the FCL. So a lot broader knowledge. These guys are really going to have to bring it. Worth noting that point.
For sure.
Yeah, I think it's going to be those sort of areas which is going to probably slip a lot of these people up. And especially the ones maybe that might be more casual Star Wars fans that are competing in the Star Wars division. So for Adam Gertler, I kind of envisioned he would be more going into Inner Geekdom anyway with his history of DC movie news and everything. But, you know, fair enough, he's gone into Star Wars. If he does know Star Wars as well as he does his DC and comic book stuff, then that's great. But I got to think... JC and Ross has probably got the... Well, I don't know. It's not really fair for me to say JC and Ross has got the advantage because, like I said, I don't know Matthew Reed and what he knows as well. But I would say JC and Ross would be stood in better stead when it comes to these TV shows, especially probably the animated ones.
And that is everything from this week and a little preview of what's coming up next time in the FCL. We love bringing you all the news, all the excitement, and soon we're going to have some great Star Wars matches to talk about. That's coming up next week. We're going to have Ross here on our show. We cannot wait to have him on. Remember to follow the Schmoedown on their Twitch channel for the FCL. Follow them on their YouTube channel for the movie trivia Schmoedown. If you're not subscribed, if you're not a member of the Patreon, what are you waiting for? It's all the movie trivia goodness you could want. And I've been joined by some wonderful people. As always, we've had my regular co-host, our super producer, Chris Barnes.
Yep, so that's another fantastic show. You can follow me on Twitter at ChrisBarnes_UK or at This Week FCL. And that's pretty much it for me.
And our co-host, who's always got something going on. I don't know how you keep it up. Ryan Permison hosting so many YouTube shows. Tell us about everything you've got going on right now.
Well, how much time you got? No, I'm just kidding. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at RyanRPM5. Check us out on YouTube at It's Nerd Culture. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at It's Nerd Culture. On Tuesday night, May the 4th, be with you, aka Star Wars Day. What's happening? What's happening? What's happening? We're going to be having a Star Wars themed show presented by the boys over at Unrelated at Birth. It's a brand new show. It's going to be debuting on Tuesday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. It's called Geek at Birth. And what better way to start this new series than talking about arguably one of the most popular franchises in history, known as Star Wars, nothing but Star Wars. And yes, we will be talking about all that and more within a galaxy far, far away. It's going to be me and Dave Adams. Check it out on YouTube on the HWWS Web TV YouTube channel. You can find us there. Other than that, I'm just happy to be here, and thanks for having me. Keith, where can the good people in the interwebs find you online, good sir?
So you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Kilduff Media. Also check out my own YouTube channel. You're not the only one that has one, Ryan. It is called The Opening Pair Podcast, where myself and my co-host Kyle Gavin, we break down sports, we break down movies in a different kind of way for every man and woman watching. You can check that out at www.youtube.com/KeithK10. Ms. Freel, please see us out.
Yes, you guys can find me at all social media at Abigail Freel. And if you're here, you're most likely a Schmoedown fan. So please follow all the Schmoedown social media. I do make a point of it to post about the FCL and ask your guys' opinion. So please check out all our social medias and the Facebook group as well.
We do want to say thank you so much, Abby, for joining us. You've been a wonderful guest, giving us a lot of insight and helping us break down all the action this week. And I highly recommend that you do like, subscribe, share our content, Ryan's content, Keith's content, but especially get that subscription into Abby on Twitter. Follow the Schmoedown social media. She's a maven of the social media. She's the queen of all things internet, and she is definitely worth a follow. Gotta subscribe as soon as possible, guys. We want to thank you for joining us this week, and we hope you'll be back here next week, because a long time ago, next week, in a galaxy far, far away, probably some kind of Zoom call or something, there's more movie trivia action coming your way, and we'll be here to break it all down. Thanks for joining us on This Week in the FCL. Okay, Abby, so I don't have enough followers on Twitter. Can you help me out with a few things?